So hi, welcome to Anchor Reviews. This is Tyler from Anchor Reviews, and this is my review on Abigail. For those who don't know, Abigail is a remake slash reimagining of Dracula's Daughter, which was a sequel, of course, to the 1931 Dracula movie of Bela Lugosi. In fact, if you want to read more about that movie or other Universal monster movies, I would highly recommend checking out my book, 100 Years of Universal Monster Movies. It's available now in places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, in both print and digital, and various other places too. It's a book that I've spent a lot of time with, and I really hope you enjoy it. But anyway, back to the video. So Abigail's about a bunch of kidnappers who kidnap a little girl named Abigail, played by Alicia Weir, and it turns out that it was a plot by Abigail herself, and also that she is a vampire who has lived for hundreds of years and is hunting them down one by one. Now, this movie is historic in a way because it is the first time a Universal monster movie has been directed by more than just one director. This time it was directed by Matt Benetti Apeni. I'm sorry if I butchered that name, and also Tyler Gillette. Now, usually the Universal monster movies beforehand have always just been one guy directing. However, this time it's multiple ones. In fact, another thing I noticed about this movie too, compared to all the other Universal monster movies, is that it doesn't have a mid-credit or post-credit scene. None of the Universal monster movies have that, which is something that I probably bet you didn't know. But anyways, so Abigail itself, I enjoyed this movie, and I will say compared to some of the more recent Dracula movies, this is like kind of the third consecutive Dracula-related movie in a row we've seen from Universal. I would say this is the best of the three that I've seen. I was kind of disappointed in Renfield as well as The Last Voyage of the Demeter. But with Abigail, I did like the story idea of, basically this character-focused story where you focus on these individuals. You can't care about them when they die and get killed off. And yeah, there's some familiar faces, of course, such as Dan Stevens. I remember he played Trapper in Godzilla X Kong New Empire, and I do like him as an actor. He's pretty good in this one too, as this guy named Frank. And the thing is, I would rather watch this than that garbage dumpster fire movie he was in previously, known as the live-action remake of Beauty and the Beast. And I gotta say the same for Kathryn Newton, who was also pretty good in this movie as a hacker named Sammy. And it's way better than that other movie called Lisa Frankenstein she was in, which I don't consider that a Universal monster movie, but if I did, I would consider it probably the worst since The Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor. But backtracking to the movie itself, I will say that in ways I did enjoy it, but I think the problem was that I've seen another movie from these directors, and also I believe it was the same writers too of this movie, also did a movie years ago called Ready or Not that had not only had a kind of a similar story, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but the way that I guess certain characters die, there's like blood explosions, and the final shot is pretty similar, like a character action is pretty similar without trying to spoil anything. So some of the problems I had with this movie, one of them was the fact that aside from kind of recycling, the movie Ray or Not in ways, is that there's a character named Peter played by Kevin Durand, and I just feel like he was a little bit too dumb. Like, I know it was for comedy in that, but we already had the Angus Cloud character as kind of like that, so I feel like that was a little bit pointless. And speaking of, this was one of the last roles that Angus Cloud was in before he passed away. Luckily, he was able to film all the scenes before he passed away. And also, speaking of this movie too, I forgot to mention, was that it was one of the movies that were affected because the actor strike. They were shooting over in Ireland over in the summer of 2023, and then the actors went on strike and had to shut down production, and it wasn't until after the strike that they were able to finish. Anyway, I'm about to get into spoilers, so fast forward to this part if you don't want to be spoiled. So in the end, it's revealed who Abigail's father is, and I'm trying to remember what the character's name went by in the story, what his name was, and obviously this is supposed to be Dracula, and the surprise is that he is played by Matthew Goody, and when I first saw him, I instantly recognized him like, oh yeah, Ozymandias from Watchmen, because I love that movie. It's such a great and underrated movie. I would argue Zack Snyder's best movie. But the thing is that I just felt like he was kind of miscast. Like, yeah, he's a tall guy, but I don't know, this doesn't seem like Dracula to me. Like, the thing is, I mean, as a vampire, yeah, he was very creepy looking, but I don't think that he really was like, oh yeah, this is Dracula in a way. And it was weird too, like his hair color was like a pale white, which is bizarre because usually we think of Dracula, think of he has the dark hair. I'm not saying he has to exactly look like Bela Lugosi or just be a clone of Lugosi. I mean, honestly, I would much rather have seen it be Luke Evans be Dracula in this one. It'd be cool to see him reprise his role from Dracula Untold and kind of connect it in a way, which ironically, that movie was shot mostly in Northern Ireland, just, north, of course, of Ireland where they shot this movie. So as for Abigail, I think it's a movie that is enjoyable. I did like it more than some of the other Universal monster movies, or at least the Dracula-related movies recently. However, I do prefer the 2020 Invisible Man over it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Universal does in the future with their other monster movies. And yeah, I just found this generally enjoyable, but I didn't really find myself loving this movie. So as for Abigail, I would give it about 3 stars out of 4. So anyway, this is Tyler from End Credit Reviews. I hope you enjoyed this episode of After the Credits on End Credit Reviews, and I hope to make a lot more in the future. Please like and subscribe.